Hey everybody, it's Ron from Pick Dawgz, and this is Ron's Bank Shot Breakdown. We're going to go over 5 college basketball games for Wednesday, November 8th, 2023. Now, if you like what you see, make sure to give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to put your college basketball picks in the comments section below. And if you're looking for my best bets, including my $19 Bank Shot best bet, as well as my all-access season pass in college basketball, you can find those at the Premium Picks tab at pickdawgz.com. Alrighty, let's get into it. Here are the games for Wednesday in college basketball. First up, it's our good old friends at Canisius taking on Syracuse. This one's 7 o'clock Eastern. It's going to be on ESPN+. We talked a lot about Canisius basketball last year and took them plenty of times, especially in the underdog role in conference play. And since they play in the MAAC, most of those conference games, or a good amount of those in the MAAC, were played on Fridays. And those are usually smaller cards in college basketball when we get to conference play. So, we talked a lot about Canisius. I like Canisius in this game, plus the points. I also lean towards the over. Canisius is their first game of the season. They're a pretty experienced team. They returned their best player in Taj Tavesky, who was one of the best rookies, one of the best freshmen in the MAAC last year. I think he's going to have a big season as well this year. He's a good perimeter shooter. And in a game like this, I know Syracuse doesn't run the 2-3 zone only. With Jim Boeheim now retired and Adrian Autry, the new head coach, they don't run the zone completely, but they still ran it a few times against New Hampshire. And New Hampshire was able to score quite a few points in that second half of that game, 40 points to be exact in the second half against the Orange. They won the second half by a couple of points, so a little bit concerning there. Syracuse had a really nice start to that game, had a big lead, but started to lose that lead and only won the game by 11 points in the end, so failed to cover in that one. Syracuse, it's a great offense, but that defense does concern me. It wasn't great last year in the final year under Boeheim, where they were ranked 185th in adjusted defensive efficiency. Canisius, like I said, they're a pretty good perimeter shooting team. They're a good offensive rebounding team. They take care of the basketball. They did so last year, and that's really important when you're playing Syracuse, especially in the Carrier Dome. Take care of the basketball, get those offensive rebounds, and if you can shoot well from the perimeter, you have usually a good chance to maybe pull off the upset. We've seen Syracuse lose some games to some teams they shouldn't have in recent years, and I'm going to take the points just to be safe. We're getting double digits, but give me Canisius plus the points at the Carrier Dome. Next up, we see Troy and Ohio. This one's 7 o'clock Eastern on ESPN+. It's going to be a part of the MAC and Sun Belt Conference Challenge, but it's still a true home game for Ohio in the end. Their first game of the season, while Troy played a subdivision opponent against Fort Lauderdale, and their first game was a home game, 92-47 the win there. It doesn't really tell us too much. This is their first real test on the road against a solid team, and I really like this Bobcats team on paper. Ohio, this roster is really deep. They bring back 3 double-digit scores from last year's roster, and they bring in a nice transfer in Sharif Mitchell from Creighton, who played 4 years there. Didn't play a ton of minutes with Creighton, but still 4 years of Power 5 basketball experience, not going to hurt you. This is a team that's got a lot of depth pieces on the roster and on the bench. Going to be a team that probably plays 8-9 guys a night, and I expect that in this game as well. Troy on the road, it's a tough spot to be in. You only have 1 day off from that first game. Now you're on the road against a team I think is going to compete for a MAC title this year, and we're laying a pretty reasonable number with Ohio. I think that there's value with Ohio in this spot. Give me the Bobcats laying the points at home. Next up, we see Mississippi State and Arizona State. This one a 9:30 Eastern start time. It's a neutral site game at the Wintrust Arena in Chicago. Mississippi State, a 2-bucket favorite in this one. Now, I want to start by saying this is the first game for both of these teams this season. I do think that Mississippi State is the better team. I think they're going to go on to do better things this year. However, I'm just not in love with the idea of laying points, especially 2 buckets, with a team that just wasn't great in neutral site games offensively or in general last season. Mississippi State had 1 game where they scored more than 70 points in a neutral site game last year. That was against Akron. That was their first neutral site game back on November 11th. It was a nice blowout win. But after that, they had nice wins over Marquette and Utah, but only beat both of those teams by 3 points and only scored 58 and 52 points in those games. A game against Jackson State in another semi-road game, neutral site game. Jackson State was ranked 304 in the KenPom rankings at the time. Mississippi State only won that game by 10 points, only put up 69 points in that one. Then you get into conference play in the SEC. You play the Florida Gators in the SEC tournament, a team that was without its best player in Colin Castleton. You needed overtime to beat the Gators by 1 point, and you still only scored 69 points in that ballgame. Then you play your next round against Alabama in the tournament, the SEC tournament. You lose 72-49, only scoring 49 points in a blowout loss. You move on to the NCAA tournament in a neutral site game against Pittsburgh, an 11-seed playing game. You only score 59 points, and you lose that game outright as well. I just don't trust this Mississippi State offense to cover or lay this big number against an Arizona State team that may not be as talented on paper, but still has a lot of nice transfers in. Still, plenty of talent on this roster, and is really well coached by Bobby Hurley. I think the Sun Devils, who played really well in non-conference play last year, started the season 11-1 to start. I think they compete in this game. If they find the win, great, but at the very least, I think they cover the number as the underdog. So give me the points here with Arizona State. Next up, it's Southern and UNLV. This one, 10 o'clock Eastern. It's a home game for UNLV, and they're a big favorite in this game, the biggest favorite for Wednesday's card in college basketball. Now, Southern, right away when I look at this game, you see UNLV has the rest advantage. As Southern played on Monday against TCU, they have 1 day off in between this game. They have to travel from TCU to UNLV. While UNLV hasn't played yet, to the home team, they're rested. So, advantage goes there to the Rebels. But even beyond that, when you look at Southern's first game against TCU, it's always concerning for me when you lose a game by 33 points and you shot 41.7% from three. So you had a really good night from the perimeter and you had 13 offensive rebounds, yet you still managed to give up 108 points and lose the game by 33 to TCU. I mean, I know this game was close last year. It was a 66-56 final score, but in that game last year, UNLV had shot 15% from three. They were 4 of 26 from the perimeter, one of their worst nights from the perimeter all season, and they still had 38 trips to the free throw line and forced 28 turnovers. So it was still a dominating performance from UNLV in the end. Just the shots weren't falling, but if they fall here, I think it could be a really ugly result for Southern. Don't love this team. I didn't like what I saw in that first game, and like I said, the spot's also really difficult going from TCU to UNLV. Only 1 day off in between. Give me UNLV here, land the big number. I think they're big favorites for a reason. Next up, we see Jackson State and San Diego, the final game we're going to talk about for Wednesday's card in college basketball. Now, to me, I hate to fade the SWAC again. I got my Prairie View A&M hat on right now, but I just think it's similar to Southern, a really tough spot for Jackson State in this ball game. Another tough travel spot going from Memphis, Tennessee on Monday, only 1 day off in between, and now playing on the West Coast for the first time in a while for this program. They only played one game on the West Coast back in 2022 against Cal Baptist, and they lost that game by 13 points. They failed to cover the number. Cal Baptist didn't have a great team that year, so it was only about a 6-point spread, and Cal Baptist won 77-64. Jackson State in that game against Memphis, usually Mo Williams, and the Jackson State teams in general, but Mo Williams' team certainly more known for their defense, but they still gave up 94 points in that ball game. Not really what you want to see, and Jackson State made 10 three-pointers in that game, still lost it by 17. I just worry about the spot here. San Diego, they didn't play great in their first game against a subdivision opponent in Sonoma State. They only won that game by 4 points, but they are the home team. They are, I do think they are the better team overall. And while I think Jackson State's going to go on to cover some spreads here in non-conference play, this is just not one of those great spots. So give me the San Diego Toreros, laying the points, laying a pretty reasonable number, only a couple buckets at home. And that's it. Those are the games in college hoops for Wednesday. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe. And don't forget to put your college basketball picks in the comments section below. Again, if you're looking for my best bets, you can find those at Pick Dawgz Premium. As always, this is Ron Romanelli. Good luck.